Okay, let's get into it. So, in this presentation, we're going to discuss how sedentary work is silently sabotaging your body and mind, and of course, how to fix it. So, let's start. And obviously, we must start with definitions. Firstly, identifying the issues, understanding those issues, and obviously defining them. So, what is sedentary lifestyle? A sedentary lifestyle is categorized by a lack of regular physical activity. With prolonged periods of sitting or lying down during waking hours, it often involves minimal movement and low energy expenditure throughout the day. And obviously, this can include extended periods of sitting at a desk, watching TV, or using electronic devices. Now, this is more contextual for many of us who spend a lot of time sitting at work, sitting at a computer for extended periods of time, and doing work for 5, 6, 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is, in the office or at home. And then a lot of people, most of the population, don't meet the minimum requirements for physical activity. So they go from sitting at work to sitting at home, sitting on a train, sitting on the tube, sitting on the couch, sitting watching TV, right? And this is deleterious to your health and well-being overall. So how much sitting is too much? Sitting over 6 hours per day is too much. A 2012 meta-analysis found that sitting for more than 6 hours a day is associated with a significant increases in all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, certain cancers, and this risk increases linearly beyond the 6 hour mark. So in that study, they concluded that prolonged sedentary time was independently associated with deleterious health outcomes, regardless of your physical activity. And the research overall is clear. Once you cross the 6 hours a day sitting, your risk of chronic disease, early death starts climbing. By 8 to 10 hours of sitting, even with regular exercise, isn't enough to fully undo the damage. But small strategic interventions throughout your day can protect your health without quitting your career. So looking at this diagram from the CDC, it shows obviously high risk region for people sitting. And then obviously as you increase physical activity, you lower your risk over time. And that is pretty clear, but we're going to unpack that a little bit more with some other research. So starting with the abstract. So these are different, these will be multiple studies. I'll be referring to multiple sources just to get the point across. So overweight and obesity affects more than 66% of the adult population and associated with a variety of chronic diseases. Weight reduction reduces health risk associated with chronic diseases, and it is therefore encouraged by major health agencies. Guidelines of the National Heart, Lung and Blood Institute encourage a 10% reduction in weight, although considerable literature indicates reduction in health risk with 3 to 5% reduction in weight. So to really get the benefits, you need to lose about 10% of your body weight or reduction in weight. But once you have lost 5%, that's classed as clinical weight loss. So physical activity is recommended as a component of weight management for prevention of weight gain, for weight loss, and for prevention of weight regain after weight loss. And of course, in 2001, the ACSM published a position stand that recommended a minimum of 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity physical activity for overweight and obese adults to improve health. However, 200 to 300 minutes per week was recommended for long-term weight loss. More recent evidence has supported this recommendation and has indicated more physical activity may be necessary to prevent weight regain after weight loss. So there is a low entry point generally for mitigating the health risks. And overall in this presentation, I'll be speaking in the context of the low entry point, but if you're trying to optimize and maintain or improve your health over time, these requirements need to increase, right? And obviously, if you want to optimize, then there has to be an increase in your efforts or increase in how much you're doing certain things. So sitting and low levels of energy expenditure are hallmarks of sedentary behavior, and encompass activities such as television watching, computer use, and sitting in a car or at desk. Spending long periods of time in sedentary pursuits is associated with elevated risks of cardiovascular disease, mortality and depression, increased weight circumference, elevated blood pressure, depressed lipoprotein lipase activity, and worsened chronic disease biomarkers such as blood glucose, insulin, and lipoproteins. Sedentariness is detrimental even among individuals who meet current physical activity recommendations. Moving on, cardiorespiratory exercise reduces several cardiometabolic disease risk factors, although the magnitude of effect is modest. Varies according to individual and exercise program characteristics, and a change in one cardiometabolic risk factor apparently occurs independently of a change in another. Favorable improvements in hypertension, glucose intolerance, insulin resistance, dyslipidemia, and inflammatory markers have been reported in middle-aged and older persons exercising within the volumes and quality of exercise recommended, even during weight regain. One key area to highlight is the more overweight you are, the lower your glucose tolerance. So you become glucose intolerant. Therefore, it's harder for you to metabolize carbohydrate and glucose, which then leads to a dysregulation in energy levels, and also the inability for you to actually use those substrates and food effectively. And that means that you get fluctuating energy levels, you get low energy levels, and then you get weight gain, right? So it's literally this snowball effect that you really need to get hold of. The benefits of exercise and cardiometabolic risk factors are acute, lasting hours to days, and chronic, highlighting the value of regular exercise participation on most days of the week. Exercise without dietary modification has a modest effect, roughly 2% to 6% on short term, less than 6 months weight loss, but favorable changes in associated cardiometabolic risk factors, for example, visceral abdominal fat, total body fat biomarkers, can occur even in absence of concomitant weight reduction. Albeit weight loss enhances these improvements, some risk factors changes such as reduction of LDL and the attenuation of decline in HDL accompanying reduced dietary intake of saturated fat occur only when exercise is combined with weight loss, right? So there's many benefits there that you must combine with weight loss, but also with improved dietary intake. This evidence suggests it is not enough to consider whether an individual engages in adequate physical activity to attain health benefits, but also that health and fitness professionals should be concerned about the amount of time clients spend in activities such as television watching and sitting at a desk. And one key area we want to focus on, obviously, is some is good, but more is better. Exercise, physical activity, and physical fitness are closely related constructs, but they have distinct meanings. And we're going to look at those definitions in a moment, but just want to highlight this graphic here showing the metabolic equivalents for those levels of physical activity. So sedentary would be classed as inactive, and then as you go up the scale, you get towards vigorous physical activity, which is really where you start to optimize your physiology and your health, right? Obviously, then we have the low entry points here that can mitigate some of the health risks, but if you're trying to optimize, you want to be up towards this end here. So let's look at those definitions. So physical activity is any bodily movement produced by the skeletal muscles that results in energy expenditure above resting basal levels. Physical activity broadly encompasses exercise, sports, and physical activities done as part of daily living, occupation, leisure, and active transportation. So physical activity is the umbrella term, right? And then we have exercise. Physical activity that is planned, structured, and repetitive, and that has a final or intermediate objective, the improvement or maintenance of physical fitness. That is exercise. Looking at physical fitness, the ability to carry out daily tasks with vigor, alertness, without undue fatigue and with ample energy to enjoy leisure pursuits and to meet unforeseen emergencies. Physical fitness is operationalized as a set of measurable health and skilled attributes that include cardiorespiratory fitness, muscular strength, endurance, body composition, flexibility, balance, agility, reaction time, power. So if you're trying to optimize your body, you want to be developing physical fitness. Finally, looking at physical function, the capacity of an individual to carry out the physical activities of daily living. Physical function reflects motor function, control, physical fitness, and habitual physical activity, and is an independent predicator of functional independence, disability, morbidity, and mortality. So, physical activity is the umbrella term. We can look at how to implement exercise as a structured plan to develop physical fitness, and that is physical fitness obviously rests on a scale, right? Optimal being at the top, you have optimal fitness, and then obviously there will be a lot of the population have low physical fitness. And one thing we must realize is that physical activity, exercise, and physical fitness feed into physical function. Now, that is really important because as we age, physical function usually declines if you don't do anything about it. But if you are optimizing your physical fitness, your physical function will be at a very high level until very late in your life. And obviously now we're seeing how you can start to see in the population those who have low physical function really struggle in their older years, and those who have high physical function, you can see them, they're 40, 50, and they're still very physically fit. So exercise and physical activity health benefits. The scientific evidence demonstrating the beneficial effects of exercise is indisputable, and the benefits of exercise far outweigh the risk in most adults. Exercise intensity is an important determinant of the physiological responses to exercise training. So looking at some of the health benefits and research behind that going forwards. So a lot of this is pulled from the ACSM, which is the best, biggest health and fitness body. They've done all of the research and concluded like all of the quantifiable data around physical fitness, physical activity, and exercise. So the ACSM recommends a comprehensive program of exercise, including cardiorespiratory resistance, flexibility, and neuromotor exercise of sufficient volume and quality as outlined in this document for apparently healthy adults of all ages. Reducing total time spent in sedentary pursuits and interspersing short bouts of physical activity and standing between periods of sedentary activity should be a goal for all adults, irrespective of their exercise habits. And as we've stated before, these risks that come with sedentary lifestyle or sedentary behaviors is irrespective of whether you have a healthy lifestyle or not. So you have to be mitigating those risks by improving your physical fitness, building your body's robustness and its ability to withstand stress, right? So where was it? So exercise performed in this manner improves physical and mental health and or fitness in most persons. However, a program of exercise that does not include all exercise components, which are cardiorespiratory resistance, flexibility, and neuromotor exercises, achieve less than the recommended volumes, okay? Intensity, duration, and frequency of exercises is likely to have benefit, particularly in habitually inactive persons, right? So let's go over that again. So a program exercise that does not include all of the components achieves less than the recommended volumes, right? So even though some people might think, oh, I only do cardio, or I only do yoga, or I only do this type of training, you're literally missing out on all of the recommended components that lead to physical fitness levels or those higher physical fitness levels. So you have to be encompassing cardiorespiratory training, resistance training, flexibility training, and neuromotor control training, right? All-cause mortality is delayed by regular engagement in physical activity. This is also the case when individual increases physical activity by changing from a sedentary lifestyle or a lifestyle with insufficient levels of physical activity to one that achieves recommended physical activity levels. Exercise and physical activity decrease the risk of developing cardiovascular disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and some forms of cancer, for example, colon and breast cancer. Exercise and physical activity lower blood pressure, improve lipoprotein profile, C-reactive protein, and other cardio health disease biomarkers, including, obviously, we want to looking at their enhancing insulin sensitivity and play an important role in weight management. Of particular relevance to older adults, exercise preserves bone mass and reduces the risk of falling. Prevention of and improvement in mild to moderate depressive disorders and anxiety can occur with exercise. A physically active lifestyle changes feelings of energy, well-being, quality of life, and cognitive function, and is associated with a lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia. Overall, and abdominal obesity are associated with increased risk of adverse health outcomes, whereas greater fat-free mass is associated with a low risk of all-cause mortality. Higher levels of cardiorespiratory and muscular fitness are each associated with lower risks of poorer health. All right. So moving on, looking at the how much physical activity is required. I've pulled out this slide from the CDC recommendation. So the CDC has created a document or a research paper. I think it's close to like 100 pages long. It's absolutely ridiculous. But it outlines all of the physical activity requirements for all of the different types of demographics in population. So adults, children, women who are pregnant, older adults, and it goes into subcategories of people with like disabilities, stuff like that, right? And you can look at this in your own time. I'm not going to read through it, but this outlines the basic lower entry requirement for physical activity for adults between 18 and 64 years, right? Without any health issues per se. So going into this a bit further, how much physical activity do we really need to do, right? As a low entry point. How can studies of physical fitness help to clarify the question of how much physical activity is needed? For instance, a study of apparently healthy middle-aged adults showed that all-cause and cardiovascular disease mortality rates were approximately 60% lower in persons with moderate compared to low cardiorespiratory fitness, estimated from time to fatigue on a treadmill. Di Pietro et al. Found significant improvements in glucose utilization in sedentary older men and women who engage in vigorous exercise, so 80% maximal oxygen uptake, but not in those who performed moderate exercise, so 65% of VO2 max. Although all subjects expended about 300 calories and trained about 4 days a week. A comprehensive review by Swain concluded that there were greater improvements in VO2 max with vigorous intensity exercise training compared with moderate intensity exercise when the volume of exercise is held constant. So going back to what I said earlier about this level of activity and the metabolic changes or adaptations that you see, yes, to attain reduced health risks, especially with weight gain, heart disease, you can move from sedentary behavior into light or moderate physical activity, and you're going to get the health benefits. But to really see those higher echelon improvements, you need to be moving into vigorous physical activity, as explained here, right? So is there a threshold of intensity needed? According to the overload principle of training, exercise below a minimum intensity or threshold will not challenge the body sufficiently to result in increased VO2 max and improvements in other physical parameters. Supporting these findings, a comprehensive review of exercise training in runners determined that near maximal, so 95% plus of VO2 max effort, training intensities were needed to improve VO2 max in well-trained athletes, while 70 to 80% seemed to provide a sufficient stimulus in moderately trained athletes. Threshold of exercise intensity may vary depending on the fitness level, and it may be difficult to precisely define an exact threshold to improve cardiorespiratory fitness levels. But if you utilizing a structured training program with a coach, these parameters will become more defined as you work through that structured programming, right? Further, a study of 16 pairs of same-sex twins with discordant physical activity patterns found that greater volumes of exercise were associated with lower total visceral, liver, and intramuscular body fat, with the active twin having on average 50% less visceral fat and 25% less subcutaneous abdominal fat compared with the inactive twin. The short-term effects of exercise on mental health, particularly depression, may be function of exercise intensity, although a specific threshold has not yet been defined. Right, moving on. The scientific evidence demonstrating the beneficial effects of exercise is indisputable, and the benefits of exercise far outweigh the risks in most adults. A program of regular exercise that includes cardiorespiratory, resistant, flexibility, and neuromuscular training beyond activities of daily living to improve and maintain physical fitness and health is essential for most adults. And as we've explained, the ACM did outline those recommendations, but I'm not going to go into those too much right here, but you can pause and read through that if you wish. So how can behavior be improved to enhance exercise adoption and adherence? Now, this is a key area I'm really interested in, because there's a large portion of the population that just doesn't do exercise, can't adhere to it, can't change their behavior, and really getting into these optimal levels of physical fitness levels, you have to be able to improve your behavior and be able to be adherent to what needs to be done, right? So despite the benefits of exercise and all of this research and all of this outlined data, and they've literally nailed it down on the head and what specifically you have to do, right? Despite all of those benefits, a large proportion of adults fail to achieve the recommended levels of physical activity. Exemplifying the problem, walking is the most popular physical activity identified by adults, but fewer than 7% of those whose primary exercise is walking are doing so with the frequency, duration, intensity to meet contemporary physical activity recommendations. Like, it's not enough, right? Numerous non-modifiable socio-demographic and neighborhood environmental characteristics are associated with exercise behavior. Supervision by an experienced exercise leader can, on the other hand, enhance adherence. Structured supervised programs and unsupervised home-based programs can increase exercise behavior, and there seems to be no difference in adherence to home-based and traditional exercise programs. This is a key part of the research that clearly outlines that having someone to be accountable to, having a structured exercise program, having something in place drastically increases chances of you adopting more positive lifestyle behaviors, but also being adherent to it over a long enough period of time to actually increase your physical fitness levels. So finally, looking at environmental and lifestyle changes to increase physical activity levels. What can you do? How can you fix this, right? First place is workspace and daily environment adjustments. We can look at improving the workspace by using a standing desk or an adjustable desk. Alternate between sitting and standing throughout the workday. We can also, if you have the space and time and money to do all this stuff, but these are some options you can do, right? Getting a walking treadmill at the desk. So low speed walking treadmill on your desk to accumulate steps while working. Getting a better chair, ergonomic supported chair, reduces posture related fatigue and encourages better movement patterns when seated. When you're working, utilizing a Pomodoro timer with scheduled movement breaks. So 25, 30-minute work block, you can go up as long as an hour or so if you can do that for that long. I usually use like a 60 to 90-minute Pomodoro timer because I can focus for a lot longer. And then within that Pomodoro timer, you have a scheduled break, right? So get up from your desk, move around, just do something that is away from your desk. And obviously that 3 to 5 minute movement break, we can also use around this for stretching, walking, or light mobility drills. We can implement movement cues in the office or in the workspace. Keep resistance bands, foam roller, or massage ball nearby. Place water or printer across the room to encourage walking. Visible step counter activity tracker, and constant feedback loop to gamify daily movement goals. So utilizing an Oura Ring, Apple Watch, Garmin, whatever. Yeah. And obviously, what can help also is having a dedicated stretching and mobility area, clear space in your home or office for a quick stretch break, or just some sort of movement break, right? And finally, looking at the daily movement and physical activity habits. So what we want to be aiming for as a minimum, right? So that is 1 to 3 cardio sessions per week. That could be walking, cycling, rowing, swimming. Could be anywhere between 20 to 45 minutes per session. And then 2 to 4 strength training sessions per week. Focus on improving muscle mass, posture, strength, and metabolic health. Look at maybe taking your phone calls, walking or standing. Walking your commute or partial walk or cycle, or just get in some movement somewhere there. Park further away, get off public transport 1 to 2 stops early, walk or cycle. Yeah. And that can be done for a lot of people with their commute. Looking at daily stretching, just adopting like a 10 to 15 minute daily stretch, especially focusing on hips, hamstrings, back, and shoulders. We can also implement a morning movement primer, so a short 5 to 10 minute stretch or mobility session to wake up the body and improve energy levels in the morning. We can also implement being active with your social plans, not always going to the pub, having a drink, going party, and doing stuff that is deleterious to your health. Try to implement more active social plans like walks, hikes, or implementing some sort of sport over the weekend. Yeah. And that using that over purely sedentary meetups. Yeah. Weekend active time. Schedule at least one active outing. So hike, long walk, recreational sport each weekend. Okay. That it is, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you've got any questions or any feedback, just shoot me in the DMs and I'll see you on the next one.